Right, okay, good evening everyone. Welcome to the new week. So as usual, quick disclaimer for everyone who's watching. Information of course provided in this session are solely based on educational purposes, right? We'll be talking about opportunities in the market, but just make sure that you're aware, okay? Those are my personal point of view and they do not directly translate to any form of trade signals or financial investment advisory, okay? So as usual, the session over here will be looking at the overview of the market, okay, highlighting some of the events to take note, the opportunities that I'm looking at. And then after that, we'll have a little bit of a Q&A to see if you guys have any questions. Feel free to put it into the chat box. And then after that, we'll wrap up the session, okay? So first thing first, let's take a look at what we have this week. Starting off this week, we do have a little bit of a Euro PMIs coming in. But again, I think you guys would know, I'm not someone who focus a lot on all these PMIs, right? I think that, especially in the Euro side, right, there are just so many PMIs and basically their individual country PMIs and the impact on Euro as a whole is not that significant. So I don't really focus on all this Euro related PMI data, okay? Then on Wednesday, we have the Australia CPI, of course, then that will be interesting to note. Okay, inflationary data is always still very, very important. Okay, so definitely that's something to take note of. And then going into the end of the week on Friday, we have very important BOJ. Okay, so that's definitely important, right? That's the potential news that I would say you definitely want to keep an eye on because we do have the dollar yen actually hitting again, keep pushing all-time high. And it's a matter of question in terms of like when will the Bank of Japan step in and maybe intervene, okay? And when that happens, definitely we'll see the yen volatility pick up. Okay, so Bank of Japan on Friday definitely very interesting gonna be. We have the press conference, so I'm pretty sure questions related to intervention, questions related to how dollar yen has been pushing higher and higher, definitely is gonna come out. Okay, so pay attention if you're trading yen related. Be aware on Friday the volatility may pick up. And on Friday evening we have the US core PCE price index. So of course that's also important, right? Because that's related to inflationary data. Okay, so relatively not a lot of data this week here. I think the focus will be very much on the end of the week on Bank of Japan as well as the core PCE price index. Okay, so let's jump into the charts, cover some of the major potential setups here as well and major currency pairs. Okay, for me this week so far as of today doesn't seem to have a lot of setups for me. Okay, one of it I was looking at was pound yen, but basically the market is still pushing lower, so the setup needs to be adjusted. We'll need to give it a bit more time to see how it goes because again, this is pretty impulsive. We always want to wait for the correction, right? Okay, but having said that, let's start off with the dollar index. Okay, dollar index here, I'm looking at it from a perspective where this is likely developing a three-wave move. Getting very close to the 100% FIB. Okay, and again, I'm not too keen to be buying where price is so close already. So I would say the update on this is slightly my expectation, or I would say what I want to see or wait to see is, can this forms a crawl? Okay, if it forms a crawl here, then short term we can trade the pullback. Okay, moving forward. So this definitely need to give it a bit of time, right? Because a crawl is corrective in itself. It's gonna take time. And we don't really have a lot of dollar related news. Maybe there are some surprise sentiment, but as of now, in terms of calendar side, there isn't much. The only one, as I mentioned, is Friday's PC price index, right? So I think momentum is likely going to just continue follow through a little bit. We're likely going to see a bit more upside, but if there's going to be a crawl, that would set us up for an opportunity to take a short-term pullback. Okay, so that's on the dollar. Then if you go over to the euro side, again, I'm neutral on this. The market is basically testing the 100% FIB right now. This may have completed that three-wave structure. So again, depending on how price is going to develop here, we may have a very, very different short-term bias, right? Because if this is going to be corrective, then we can expect a little bit more downside. But looking at things now, it doesn't look like it's gonna develop into a correction. Seems like this can become a crawl a little bit more, right? If that's the case, then of course, pretty much aligned with the dollar index as an overall, then we'll likely look for a bit more of a short-term upside. Okay, so we just need to give it time, see how the price is going to develop. Okay, pound dollar is still coming down pretty impulsive. If I were bring you to the daily chart here, there's a good possibility we'll see more downside for pound dollar, right? So if you kind of extend this here on a daily perspective, that opens up a lot of downside, right? So this is on the daily, so that gives us a, I would say, bigger picture perspective, the bird's eye view. Okay, so if you go down back to the lower time frame, we're seeing this as a impulsive move. Okay, potentially 3-wave done. This may continue to drop further, might be turning into even a 5-wave structure, but we'll see. In either case here, I'm not going to be jumping into the sell or buy either, right? Because if this is going to be impulsive, I'm not going to touch it. If we see a corrective pullback, then maybe we'll start to look for sell, because on the high time frame, as I bring you over on the daily just now, there is still downside, right? There's still downside. Okay, so this one may or may not build into a setup this week, but very, very interesting to keep watch, right? Because if this is gonna keep dropping, then we have a huge downside opportunity to keep track on. Okay. Then we have the Aussie dollar. Okay, Aussie dollar is not the clearest pattern structure, obviously. But right now, the closest pattern that I can really look into, kind of focusing at the moment, it's a 5-wave structure from this top, right? So kind of impulsive drop, and then I'm looking at this as a potential expanding flat. Okay, that would actually decode this move down as a wave 3. So again, if this is going to be corrective, that might open up a wave 4 for one more drop to complete a 5-wave structure. Okay. Now, not the cleanest 5-wave, to be honest. On the high time frame here is also not the clearest of all. There isn't much of a clear direction on the daily, because this is, essentially in a range bar environment. So Aussie, short term, we're looking at a little bit more of a downside here, but I'll see, right? I mean, not the highest conviction trade, right? Not the highest probability trade that I'll be very, very keen into taking. So we'll see. But right now, this is the view. Okay, this is my view on Aussie. Then we have dollar Canadian. Dollar Canadian would be something that I would be interested to look for a sell if we can get a corrective pullback. On the daily, this is what I'm seeing. Okay, so potentially this move may have completed, so we're looking at a pullback. Right, so on the 4-hour chart, if we can get that corrective pullback, okay, then we'll be expecting one more drop minimum to have that 3-wave completion. So short term, I'll be interested in this. Okay, so likely this would be building into something here. Probably need to give it maybe another 1 or 2 days, right? Maybe by Wednesday or Thursday, we may get clarity in terms of whether we can sell it. Okay, dollar yen neutral. I'm not interested in the upside, as I mentioned, potentially an intervention from Bank of Japan, so I'm not so keen in buying this. I'll be waiting for that push down first, then I'll be more interested in the downside, right? So for now, nothing there. Gold here likely developing into a 3-wave structure. Okay, but I'm not so keen in the sell side, right? Looking at things here, probably I would just want to wait for price to just complete that and see if we can get an upside. But for now, I'm just going to be neutral and see how the market is going to develop. Okay, so that's about it. Crude oil here, short-term downside, but of course the market is still testing the lows, right? Ideally, we want to start to see a correction before we commit to the sell. Okay, but crude oil here, I think we have a clearer direction in the short term, right? We're basically expecting the pullback after this move is done, right? So we're expecting this pullback, maybe, it may come down deeper before the pushback. So overall direction here, we have a focus, right? We're focusing on the downside, but you just want the setup to come to us first. Okay. US equities, I think short term here we're looking at bearish, but of course it's not going to be a massive, bear market. I would say this is more of like a pullback, right? I mean, the market has been moving up for quite some time. Okay, a three-wave pullback is pretty normal. Okay, so yeah, short term here, if we can get any corrective development, okay, that will open up to a possible short-term sell. Okay, but of course, I think this week here probably not much of a setup at the moment. It's just that the direction is pretty clear. Probably you just need to give it some time to develop into something that we can get involved in, right? But right now, I think this week on S&P, there's really nothing for me. Okay. Pound yen, just now I kind of mentioned this very briefly. So I'm looking at this as a three-way structure, right? 1, 2, 3. So I'm interested in the downside, but I would love to see some kind of a pullback first, right? If there's no pullback, then of course, if this just keeps going, then obviously I will not be forcing the sell. Then maybe somewhere here we see if we can get a pullback to the upside for short-term buy, or if not, if this is just going to be a corrective itself, then we'll continue to look for downside. Okay. Now on the high time frame right now, pound yen may have ample room to keep dropping. Okay. We can see this as a potential huge crawl. So if this were to come back all the way down, retest this bottom, I'm not surprised either. Okay, that's a possibility that market can develop into. Okay, so quite a bit of things that will need to evolve with the market, right? As the market continues to develop, we need to keep track on the pattern developments and then keep updating our analysis to fit what the market is telling us. Okay, so really, as of today, I think there's not much of a setup that we can focus and put in our orders right now. It's more of giving you an idea what I'm looking at, and then depending on the next couple of days how the market is going to develop, we may or may not have something. Okay, so Aussie yen here, I'm neutral simply because we have the three wave completed. We have a pretty strong bounce. The market is testing the 618 at the moment. I want to see how the market is going to react off that 618 before committing to anything, right? So right now it's just neutral. Pound odd gave us a V shape, so basically it's a neutral stand right now. Nothing there. I think if I'm going to update this on a daily point of view, okay, then this would probably adjust to something like this, right? With that recent development, this may develop into a bigger three wave. If that's going to be the case, okay, let me just update it, right? So if that's going to be the case, then we're looking at it from this perspective. Okay, so that would then turn into a larger degree WXY, right? So if that's going to be the case, again, we're not going to be selling there, but if this is going to pull back correctively, then we may get involved in one more sell trade. We'll see. Okay, so again, we need to wait for the market to show us what's the next move. Okay, so pound odd still neutral. Euro Canadian, okay, I'm also gonna be shifting this to neutral. I think overall that development doesn't look clean right now. Okay, we'll probably need to see what's next, right? Anyway, this is definitely in a consolidation, right? So we'll wait. BTC maybe is one of the better ones. We have Bitcoin halving over the weekend, right? So definitely I'm more into the bullish side of things from a, you can call it fundamental. Then technical wise here, we are also looking at a three wave completion. Very nice little rejection as well. If you go into a lower time frame, we even have that double bottom structure, right? So definitely technical kind of align with the halving, right? Sentiment perspective is also on the upside. So we're waiting for the pullback. Okay. If you're familiar with some of the setups I use, there is a setup on Bitcoin. Okay, there is a setup on Bitcoin because we have clear fair value gap. We have definitely order flow there. We have order block, right? We have double bottom. Okay, so basically, we're just waiting for the pullback, and then we'll get involved in the trade. Okay. For this morning, I haven't really put in the trade plan for you guys, right? For those of you who are in the group, I haven't put in the trade plan for you guys because earlier this morning the market was still at the top, right? I mean, right now it's still pretty much close to the top. Again, I want to wait for some kind of a pullback before placing the pending orders, right? Or else you need to keep adjusting. That defeats the whole purpose. But I think with this recent move now, going into tomorrow, I think we'll probably have this as a potential setup. Okay. Yeah, so basically those are the things I have. Pound yen here, I'll probably remove that pending order. Okay. Yeah, really nothing much right now that is very clear. Okay. If you ask me, I would say the clearest right now that potentially may get involved in maybe Bitcoin. Okay. Okay, let me. Oh, wow, interesting. Did they change the interface? Okay, so maybe we'll look into some of the index, right? I mean, some of you are interested in index as well. This is the German DAX, right? So German DAX seems to have put in a near-term low, pretty impulsive V-shaped bounce off that near-term low. So for German DAX, if we can get a corrective pullback, we can expect at least one more push, right? So this push up here may or may not be a continuation to our uptrend. Okay, this push up here may just simply be a retracement, part of a three-wave retracement of this one, and then this can still drop, right? So any buy right now, you want to just be a little bit careful on the German DAX. Maybe it's a pullback, right? A50, China looks pretty solid, right? I think this is likely going to continue its pullback. So again, if you take in the fibs, yeah, you can look up for the 618. Okay, if you can get a corrective pullback, then obviously that would be a nice little buy, right? Yeah, right. So that's A50. Hang Seng here kind of tagged the 100 and 1, 2, 3. Not the nicest reaction of all in terms of the channel, but it's still basically a valid move, right? It tags the 1, 2, 3, kind of did a decent bounce. We can see this as also a three-way structure, right? So of course, if you're into Hang Seng Index, I think that's a very nice little setup. Okay, same thing here. If you can get a three-wave pullback, that would be a nice little buy, right? So if you bring yourself to the, I mean, if you zoom in, you can start to see the setup, right? For those of you who are familiar, fair value gap is there. If I bring you to the hourly, you can also see some fair value gaps, right? Okay. So obviously there's some demand zone here, but you wouldn't want to be trading off that demand, right? Okay. If you are following the premium discount concept, right, that would be just at the 50% mark. You can always pull in your fibs, look up for key significant fibs, right, whether it's at the 71, 618. Okay, but of course price action matters too, right? You want this to come down correctively, right? So I think Hang Seng may have something. I'll put this in. Since again we don't have a lot of potential trades this week, right? So I might, add in some of this here to just keep ourselves having at least some opportunities to look out for. Okay. Australia index. Yeah, we have a little bit of a double bottom-ish, but it's not as clean as the Hang Seng, right? Because Hang Seng is a very impulsive push back up. And obviously Hang Seng here we have this break. Okay. So I'm actually more convicted on Hang Seng upside than Australia. Okay, though the overall look of it quite similar. Okay, but I think Hang Seng may be a little bit better. Okay, but of course, this one here, if it's corrective in nature, we're still looking at upside. Okay, yeah. Nasdaq here, overall bearish, I would say. I mean, USI, S&P, Nasdaq, Dow Jones, they're the same. Okay, yeah. So overall, I think all bearish, right? With this one here. Yeah, short term we may have some kind of a like retracement bounce, but I think you don't want to be buying into that, right? If you want to really focus on buy, maybe the Hang Seng would be a better one. Yeah. Okay. So in terms of index, I think if you really want to focus, I think the closest for me, the the ones that I'm more confident in is Hang Seng. Okay, did I miss out any other index? Probably those are the few, right? Okay, let's just scan through a little bit here and there. Nothing, okay. Yeah, so FTSE. Oh, okay. This looks pretty impulsive V shape. Okay, it's a V shape. So obviously I'll take this as a recent low. We'll see. Okay, this one I think V shape here, but you need to give it time to. Okay, ideally you want this to continue a little bit more, and then wait for a 3-wave pullback. Okay, so a little bit more. The idea here is I want to see a momentum break out of that high, right? I mean, if it's not gonna break out of that previous high impulsively, then this can easily be a double cut top formation, and then this can obviously still come down, right? So it's a little bit tricky at the moment because we're kind of testing this area. Okay, you want a clean commitment from market, right? Whether is it going to be a clean break or clean rejection, that's probably the take, right? This is on UK 100, right? FTSE. Okay, for Switzerland index, yeah, it's a little bit like the Aussie side, right? For Switzerland index here, I'm looking at a little bit on Aussie side. But again, it's not as clean as the Hang Seng, right? Because again, this break doesn't really break through cleanly. Okay, just to give you that comparison, yeah. Hang Seng here has a momentum break. Okay, you can see that, right? So that's the difference that I'm looking at. Okay, so Hang Seng has a momentum break. The Switzerland index doesn't have it. Okay, if I go back to Australia, okay, it doesn't have it as well, right? So the pattern itself looks quite similar in terms of this three index, but the Hang Seng give us a slight difference, right? So if I'm gonna filter and focus on one, then naturally I'll be focusing a bit more on the Hang Seng. Okay, yeah, so that's my take. Okay, and of course the crypto side, that will be also crucial in terms of BTC. Definitely that's there. Okay, other than Bitcoin, the rest doesn't look very clean. Yeah, it's probably just Bitcoin. Yeah, so yeah, for me, if I kind of summarize a little bit, I think the cleanest opportunity probably that we will look into and get something out of it. Gold maybe as well, if we can get a near-term pullback. Okay, a near-term pullback, we may get something on gold, depending on how market is going to develop, right? But that might be something. Okay. Yeah. Other than that, it's probably just gonna be BTC, Hang Seng, and gold short term. Okay. Yeah. So FX side, you realize nothing much, right? Yeah. I mean, for me, April is not straightforward. Okay, April has been quite tricky so far. Good. Yeah, so those are the things I have. Hopefully give you some ideas for the week itself. So this week here, kind of sum out a little bit. FX doesn't seem very clean. Doesn't look like there's a lot of like decent kind of obvious opportunity. But you know, you probably need to branch out a little bit for this week, right? So I'm not someone who actively trade Hang Seng. But I will say, okay, I mean, if there's really nothing on the table and Hang Seng gave me a valid setup, I think it's still a pretty decent one that I can look into. Okay. Yep. So that's all for me. Again, just to share. You don't need to force things, right? If there's nothing there, then there's really nothing there. Okay. Um, so it's important to take note. When there's no opportunities, there's no setup. Sometimes you'll be like um wanting to force something in because you kind of feel that, oh, if there's no trades, then it's like a counterintuitive kind of psychological feel, right? You should be trading because you're a trader, but there's no trade, then how, right? Then you tend to force certain things in, right? So just be very, very aware of that. And if there's really no opportunities that's fitting into your setups, um, don't force something in, right? Just take the week as it is. Maybe the market is slow, right? And bear in mind there's a lot of sudden development for April. Okay, not only from an economic perspective, there are surprises from the US side, right? Economy is strong, inflation is coming back up. The conversation is from how many rate cuts we are gonna get to potentially are we gonna get a rate cut this year. So there's that shift. Okay, then there's also the Bank of Japan shift. That's happened in this month itself, and then we have the Iran crisis, risk sentiment, right? And then we have Bitcoin halving. Okay, so do understand that there's a lot of things happening, right? And sometimes when all these events are really stacking up, the market may be very volatile one direction, and then the other day in an totally opposite direction, and things like this. Um, yeah. Okay. So you just need to stay disciplined, right? That's what I wanted to say. Okay. So that's all for me. All the best for this week. Let's see how the market is going to develop, and I'll see you guys in respective sessions. Yeah. Okay. See you guys. Bye bye.